This is CNN Breaking News.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Brooke Baldwin here at the world headquarters of CNN in Atlanta. Breaking news this morning as we're talking about the tsunami warning in Hawaii. All began because of the 7.7 magnitude earthquake just off the coast of Canada, British Columbia, and that, of course, triggered the tsunami. The first waves beginning at 10:28 local time, 4:28 Eastern. In terms of who's affected, all the Hawaiian Islands, all the shorelines affected. The big question, though, is which island is affected first. Just about 80,000 people live in those evacuation zones. And the other big question is when could they all get the all clear? That answer could be a number of hours from now. So with that, we want to go to Jean Mestis, who is with the Coast Guard there for me in Hawaii. Jean, good morning. You with me?
How are you?
I am well. Why don't you just tell me what you know, what you see right now in Hawaii?
Well, basically right now, the Coast Guard Captain of the Port is working with our state and county officials to ensure public health and safety for the maritime community. The Captain of the Port has ordered an evacuation of Honolulu Harbor, and we're requesting that all mariners leave the harbor at this time if they can. We also want mariners to monitor VHF Channel 16 for notification when they can re-enter the harbor, but we're also cautioning the mariners to be advised that tsunami surges can continue for up to several hours.
What do you mean by that, tsunami surges? What is that?
Well, just like the last tsunami we had, you get the initial impact from the first wave, and then these surges, as the waves come into the harbor, it kind of funnels around, and then it goes back out, and then it'll come back in and go back out. And as we witnessed last time, this happened for a few days, actually.
Okay. Tell me, for the most part, because I know those sirens went off a little while ago, have most people heeded the warnings? Have they left the coastal areas for inland?
From what I have personally witnessed, yes. The public has taken it very seriously, and they have evacuated, if they can or if they needed to, the downtown or low-lying areas.
Jean, how concerned are you about all of this?
Pardon?
How concerned are you?
Well, very concerned, actually. We went through this not too long ago, a couple of years ago, and, we noticed that there was quite a bit of damage in the harbors, even though the wave or the surge was small. We witnessed the type of damage that it can do. So we're urging the public and the mariners to take this very seriously. Hopefully, this is just out of an abundance of caution, and we don't have the same sorts of impacts. But, we're definitely very concerned about this.
We're all hoping it does not have the impact. We're hoping for your sake. But when you mention the smaller waves, the smaller surge, what kind of damage could that still do in Hawaii?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on what it will do this time, but in the past
last time
we saw that it actually lifted homes that were in low-lying areas and moved them.
Oh, wow.
It actually took one house that was, I believe, on the Big Island and just removed it and took it right out into the harbor. So there was a considerable amount of damage.
And, Jean, that was from, give me an example, a 3-foot wave, 5-foot wave?
Well, I didn't witness it myself, but it was basically the surge as it comes in a wave.
Got it. Okay. Before I let you go, what right now for you, for the Coast Guard, challenge number one at this hour is what?
Well, ensuring public health and safety, making sure that the mariners that can get their vessels underway, get them out of the harbor so they're not stuck when these surges come in and out. And that's our primary focus, is to make sure that we're notifying the mariners, and we appreciate your time in assisting us with notifying the mariners.
We're happy to help you here, notify them and get your message out. Jean Mestis with the Coast Guard there for us in Hawaii. Jean, we appreciate it. Stay in touch with us, please. Please, sir. In the meantime, Bonnie Schneider, she is here on this Sunday. We're all watching what's happening. Bonnie, good morning again to you. Tell me what you're looking at.
Oh, we're watching, for two ends, really, of the world facing some major weather situations. We have the tsunami warning in Hawaii caused by an earthquake in Canada. And I want to show you on Google Earth and Judson, if you can click on this icon right here, we can show you the magnitude of how strong this quake was. It was well over 7.0. And, you know, it's incredible to talk about such a large earthquake because it really can have an impact across the entire Pacific Ocean. So when we're talking about that, when an earthquake is well over 7.0, it's considered a major quake, and it's really because of that disruption that we tend to see the energy work its way across the ocean and unfortunately cause the threat of a tsunami. And I mentioned that depending on the depth of the ocean where it occurs, and a tsunami can be caused by an earthquake, a landslide, or a volcano, it really can make an impact in terms of the wave heights. It's going to be a higher wave height when you're closer to shore. If you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're on a vessel, you might feel a bump in the water, and that's the tsunami. So it really can vary depending on how close you are to the coastline and the topography involved as well. So that's something we're watching very, very closely in the Hawaiian Islands right now as we still have that tsunami warning. Luckily, as we've been reporting, the wave heights have been coming in not as high as originally predicted. And you heard the expert that you just interviewed that they come in a series, and that's very typical for a tsunami. It's not one wave, it's a series of waves, and often the second or third can be stronger than the first. So that's something to keep in mind. If we weren't so busy with the tsunami, we'd be starting with this. Hurricane Sandy bearing down on the East Coast. This is a major storm that's going to impact millions of people, and I want to get right to that right now. The winds are at 75 miles per hour. Just last night I was tracking this as well. Not much of a change. This is a really wide storm. Just a couple of days ago, the wind field was 271 miles. Now it's almost 500 miles. So it's a massive storm that's going to be a major rain event and a wind event likely to cause a lot of power outages. Let's put this into motion so we can show you the track, the unusual track, almost unprecedented for this time of year, to have that northwest curve back on shore at the end of October, and then getting energized by another system coming in from the west that would really bring about that cold air. You might think, well, this would just push this thing out to sea, but not the way the atmosphere dynamics are set up. This is going to give it a jolt of energy and turn it into a superstorm that'll bring widespread wind. As soon as we get into Monday, we have wind advisories. You can see here, look at the highlights, all the way from Virginia up into New England, back out to Cleveland, Ohio. So some of the most populated cities of the U.S., including New York City, with a population of well over 8 million people, are going to be impacted by Sandy. I think it'll be the worst on Monday. We're looking at storm surge at the time of high tide, and high tide, of course, is on Monday. 4 to 8 feet possible, depending on where the landfall comes in. It's such a widespread storm, but keep in mind the storm surge is really going to be a problem in these low-lying coastal areas. For example, Fire Island on Long Island, on the south shore of Long Island, that's already had some mandatory evacuations just for that threat of storm surge. So we'll be talking about Sandy, the heavy rain, the wind, and the impacts for the next few days. Brooke?
Talking all morning long, Bonnie. Don't go too far. We appreciate you very much. So tsunami in the west, hurricane in the east, and that storm is expected to bring certain damage to the tune of $3.2 billion. Bonnie mentioned wind. This is from wind damage alone. We're going to have much more on the superstorm here after this quick break.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Let's get back to that breaking news this morning. The tsunami warning in Hawaii triggered by a 7.7 earthquake off the coast of Canada. Mayor Peter Carlisle, the mayor of Honolulu, joins me now from the Office of Emergency Management. Mr. Mayor, good morning or good evening to you. Tell me where things stand right now.
You know, we have been monitoring it. We've had, and part of the event has already come through, so they're analyzing all of the data. And ultimately, what we're going to be doing is meeting in another 35 minutes to try and determine, do we have enough information to give us a good idea of where we are now? We already know we do not want people returning to their homes in the tsunami evacuation zones yet. I would believe the military, and at least in some instances, the Marines have started to return people, but it's premature for us to do that. We believe that, frankly, we won't have a definitive answer to that for another 2 to 3 hours. And then once we get that 2 to 3 hour window, then what we have to do, it's going to be the mayor of each of the counties who declares basically the all clear message. We don't believe that we're going to be able to get to that any earlier than 2 to 3 hours from now. So we're telling people don't return to their homes and wait for that. Now, that's a different situation than what you have in the water. The water can be perilous for many, many hours beyond the land. And so that's something that's also that when we had the tsunami from Japan, we actually lost somebody who was off the shores of Waikiki, which was relatively stable. But because of the wash, the person suffered a heart attack and didn't survive it. At least that's what could have happened.
No, that's a great point you make, both on land and, of course, in the water. Let me ask you this, though, Mayor Carlisle. Do you have any idea if the worst of the waves have already come, or is that still perhaps lurking out?
We do not know the answer to that. And remember, all of these events are capricious, such as Sandy that you're going through. Right. So you can't really tell which wave is going to be packing the most punch. And sometimes it's the second, third, or even the very last one. So it's sort of a train wreck coming through slowly but surely, and you have to make sure that you have a very good idea that the worst is by you before you start sending people back into the areas that could be affected.
So, of course, as you prepare for the worst, you mentioned the phrase train wreck. I've talked to a number of people here live on air, and the good news, it seems, is though, people in Hawaii, they've been through this. While the concern is certainly very high, there seems to be no real panic. Is that what you're sensing?
Absolutely correct. This has been handled professionally. You're correct. We have a lot of experience with it. The one problem with this was that it was a very short fuse. When it happened in Japan, we had about 6 hours. When it happens off the coast of South America, we have that much time, maybe a little more. But this was only about 2.5 hours. So because it's a direct shot right at the Hawaiian Islands. So as a result, we had to make sure that everything was done faster than usual. And it was done with great professionalism, and happily our experiences in the past have paid dividends now, and we were satisfied that we had gotten people to a position of safety when they needed to be.
Okay, and then again, Mayor, when you mentioned the 2 to 3 hours, is that when you anticipate potentially getting the all clear?
No, that's what I anticipate, having enough information to know when we are going to be able to give the all clear. I suspect that we will not be getting to a point where we'll be doing the all clear for at least an hour or two after that, because we're going to have to confirm that there are no damages. We're going to have to do a visual coastal check. Then we're going to have a two-part message that will indeed talk about returning to your homes on the land and then in the ocean.
Mayor Peter Carlisle, Honolulu, we appreciate you hopping on the phone. I know this is a busy, busy night for you. We wish you the best. We'll stay in close touch, and we appreciate it, sir, very, very much.
And I'd like to thank you as well, and to give my best wishes to the First Lady, who happens to be in Pennsylvania and is going to be facing the problem with the hurricane. So I'm keeping in touch with her as well. So God bless all of you over there, and the best wishes. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Carlisle. And speaking of Sandy, let's take you from the west to the east, because as he mentions, a lot of weather news here this morning affecting so many of you, I know, across the country here. Speaking of Sandy, let's take a look at Sandy's forecast with Bonnie Schneider in the Weather Center. Bonnie, a busy Sunday here from, tsunamis to this hurricane. Tell me where Sandy is right now.
Right now, the storm is about 265 miles to the southeast of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. The storm is on the move, but this is not a typical hurricane, Brooke. It's a large one. We have a very large tropical storm force wind field. So many places have already started to feel the effects of Sandy, even though it's a Category 1 storm. And it's so unusual atmospherically because we're seeing so many different dynamics take place where this storm, when it makes that turn, is going to get a bolt of energy that typically would break it down, but not in this case. It's only going to fire it up. So right now we're looking at the storm moving fairly quickly to the northeast at about 13 miles per hour. Here's the track right now, and here's the fascination of all of us meteorologists. This turn to the northwest and a landfall somewhere possibly in the vicinity of New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. Landfall, of course, is very important, but the storm surge is also important, and we will see that, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But notice the track of the storm working its way to well interior of New England. And when I see this, it just brings back a memory of Irene last year, because that's where we saw flooding all the way up into Vermont from a storm that made landfall as a tropical storm, a strong tropical storm near New York City. So it just goes to show you the size and scope of these storms and how they can affect states far from the coast. Here's a look at the wind gusts right now. They are strong. Kill Devil Hills, well over tropical storm force winds. We're seeing them over 40 miles per hour in Virginia Beach. This is just the beginning. The winds tonight and tomorrow are going to pick up enormously. Gusts will be hurricane force all the way across Boston through New York City down through Philadelphia, 80-mile-per-hour gusts. These are the type of gusts that will certainly knock down the trees and cause some major power outages. And notice the wind advisories extend into Ohio and Pennsylvania as well.